What are you cooking today, Miss Martha? Well, let's get the 800-pound elephant out the room first. This weekend, well, the end of last week, it was a little bit chilly here, and I was putting the sweaters on all the little chihuahuas, and I was bending over, putting it on one of them, and the next one jumped the line to get his sweater on, and his little fingernail, ka-chow! It got me. I didn't want y'all to think that was a booger on my face. It's a scab because of chihuahua. And I thought, well, I'm not a vain person, but I didn't want to offend people by having to look at my little war wound while I'm cooking. So you could just edit through the end and read the description of cooking if it bothers you. However, today's a special day. Well, it's not a happy special day, but it is an occasion for me. Today, on December the 19th, 2022, marks the 49th year that my father of his passing. So it means that he has been deceased as many years as he was alive, because he died when he was 49 of a heart attack back in 1973. And one of his favorite things to eat were pork and beans. Now, when I say pork and beans, I don't mean, I couldn't even find the original when I went to the market this morning. I was going to say, I'm going to get an old can, because I haven't had them in a long time, of pork and beans, of the Campbell pork and beans. This is a fancy one that you can actually heat these up. But the whole purpose of canned pork and beans, well, we'd pack them in a picnic when we were going fishing, and you just get the old kind of hand cranking can open up the can of beans, stick a little plastic fork in there, and you'd eat them cold right out the can, because when you're fishing, you got to pay attention to your rod and reel or your line on your fishing pole the whole time, because you never know when that little popper's going to go down and it's going to catch you a little catfish or something in there. You can't be off tending to the campfire, and you don't have to take time away to eat. You just eat your little can of pork and beans and keep on going. So when my daddy said pork and beans, he called these that are in a can, they got the little tomato sauce on them, he called these fishing beans. Okay, because technically there's no pork in them. You're going to open the whole thing up, and it's going to be a tiny little thing about the size of a sugar cube of the fat off the pork, and they're going to call that pork and beans. That's how they get away with saying pork and beans on it. But he meant navy beans, because my mom would cook them with a ham hock, and they'd cook all day long. And he'd eat them for dinner when he got in from work. And then if it was a Saturday, he had time off to go hunting, he'd get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, he'd heat him up some, and he'd put him in his thermos, and they'd be out the door at 4 o'clock to go duck hunting or whatever. But he'd have him some hot navy beans to keep him warm out there in the field when they were sitting in the duck blind. But I'm not going to use ham hock, because I've got an issue with cholesterol, so I try not to use butter, and I try not to use pork. There's going to be a little bit of pork in here, because I'm calling them pork and beans. So let's get into what my ingredients are going to be. I'm going to be doing a porkish meatball, and I'm going to be doing the bean portion. It's almost like a soup in the pot. So I already have about 3 cups of mushrooms, plain little white button mushrooms that are diced up. I've got 2 cups of white onions, I've got 2 cups of green peppers, and I've got about 3/4 of a cup of garlic cloves. But I already got all this minced up and ready to go into my pot over there. Well, I'm not going to start that until I get my meatballs rocking and rolling, because they're going to have to take a while. While they're baking in the oven, we'll move over and we'll do the soup, the bean portion of the recipe. So to get the meatballs going, I've got Impossible meat, which is plant, it's not pork. I've got the lean ground beef, hamburger meat, and I do have another portion of the plant-based Impossible meat, but this is the sausage version, so it's got a little bit of spice in it, some sage and some basil and herbs. And I do have some pork in it, which are the Italian ground sausage. So that's going to be my meat portion of my meatballs. With my breadcrumbs, I'm going to use stovetop. I'm not going to use the seasoning mix. I'm just going to use the breadcrumbs. I'll save the seasoning mix for another day when I'm making the chicken soup. And I've got a little milk and a little bit of egg. So we're going to open up the breadcrumbs. We're going to beat the eggs, crack those open, beat those eggs, and put the milk in the eggs. So I'm going to let those soften up while I get my hands dirty, open up all the meat. But I'm not ready for that yet. I'm still showing you ingredients. The beans. I've got cannellini beans. I've got pinto beans. I have some navy beans. I also have, they're not beans, but the chilies, canned items though. I've drained all of these. I wanted to show you the difference between the Spanish or the Mexican version beans, Goya, and your store-bought brands. Now, the non-organic beans were $1.79 a can, and the organic beans were only $1.39 a can. And I know why, because look, it's only 3/4 of a can by the time you drain off of them. When you drain off your Goya beans, look, you still got a full can of beans. Look at that. So value-wise, you're better off just buy Goya. So those are my beans. My seasonings are going to be, I've got 2 packages of the sausage flavored gravy. I've got some light sour cream. I got a little bit of beef bouillon, a little bit of beef broth, and tiny little bit of salt. Not even a half a teaspoon of salt. There's a lot of beans, there's a lot of meat. You gotta have a little bit of salt to go with all the onions and the peppers over here. Then I've got garlic powder, onion powder, basil, and Italian seasonings. The same profile that's going to go with the beans is also going to go into the meat to season the meat. So we're going to go ahead and let's pause things here and let me open up all my meat portions, my bags, satchels, and whatever they're packaged in. And then I'll wash my hands really good, and we'll come back here and make the meatballs. And then we'll pick back up from there when they're roasting in the oven, because it's going to take them, it's a lot of impossible meat in here, so that kind of makes them cook faster than if it was all just regular hamburger meat. So it might not take 20 minutes, it might take 10. So I'm going to check up at 10-minute mark, but maybe take 10 to 20 minutes. And when they're at 375, I'll preheat my oven over there. So when I've got those baking, we'll go ahead and we'll saute the vegetable portions, and then we'll add all the other ingredients to that. And by that time, because these beans, these aren't the dry beans that have to sit there and soak overnight and boil all day long. But think about the navy beans, those like that. You always got to put a teaspoon of baking soda in that, or it gives you the toots when you're cooking dried navy beans. And that's something else that I don't really like that part of it. I don't want the indigestion, the bloatness of the navy beans, so I don't cook those like that. I like cannellini beans better than I do navy beans. But I'm honoring my daddy today, so I'm making pork and beans, but it's not ham hock and navy beans, but it's a rendition of that. And I think if he was here today, he'd like it. I think he would love it. So I'll pick back up with you in just a minute. I'm going to open up all the meat here. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we'll go ahead and crack open the eggs. We're going to put our eggs on our stuffing crumbs. You could just use regular breadcrumbs if you want to. You can make your own breadcrumbs if you've got leftover hot dog buns. Just cut them. And so that's 3 eggs. That's 3/4 cup of regular milk. Mix that well so they can start softening up a little bit. But they're going to bind the meat together, especially when you're using that impossible meat. I'm going to go ahead and get that in there. Let that be softening up. And I've got my basil. We're going to do 2 teaspoons. 1, 2. 1 teaspoon of the Italian seasoning. 2 teaspoons of garlic. Garlic's good for heart health. 1, 2, and 1 teaspoon of the onion. Put those aside because I've got to move those over to the stove. That's going to go in the bean portion as well. Mix all that together. Let that be softening up. Let's show you the meat that's out of the packaging in case you haven't cooked with impossible meat before. I've used it several times and we're quite pleased with it. It does actually have the consistency and the taste of meat, because you're going to, if you cook meatballs, or if you make spaghetti sauce, or if you're making meatloaf, the same kind of seasoning that you would have put in with your meat, you're going to put in with the impossible, the plant-based protein, so it's going to taste the same. It really does. You can tell, here's the pork sausage over here. Here's the hamburger, the beef meat here. Here is the impossible meat plant protein. And this one over here that looks like it has a little fat portions in. I don't know how they make that in there either. I think they get the little baby teeth from the tooth fairy. I've said that before. Anyway, this over here is the sausage portion of it. All right. We'll pause and wait a minute because I've got to allow the breadcrumbs a few minutes to soften up. And I've got to get a bigger bowl to mix all this in. So give me a second. Okay, I've combined the breadcrumb or the stuffing mixture in with egg and milk mixture in with the meats. And you're going to make little balls about the size of ping pong balls. So now it's just a matter of sitting here rolling all these out. My oven is preheated to 375 degrees. My baking sheet has been sprayed with non-stick spray because sometimes the plant-based meat will stick. There's enough grease and fat in your hamburger meat and in your pork product. It wouldn't stick if you were just making that kind of a meatball. You wouldn't have to spray it. But with the impossible meat, I found you do have to spray it. Well, if I got a clean finger, I'm going to pause the camera, roll all these out, and then we'll pick back up. And I do apologize for the scab again. Whew. All right, that's the hardest portion of the recipe. I got 120 meatballs out of 4 pounds of my proteins, which I'm calling the pork portion of the pork and meats. So these are going to go into the oven. Well, I'll do one tray at a time, large tray first, and the other tray. I'll check them at 10 minutes at 375 degrees. They may have to cook a little bit longer because it's not all plant-based. There's some other meats in here. So we're going to pick up over at the stove where I'm doing the bean portion while these bake. Okay, over to the bean portion of the pork and beans. I've got the diced mushrooms, peppers, onions, garlic, and some diced low sodium ham in here. Proportions will be listed in the description on the YouTube cooking channel video. Also, there are 4 tablespoons of olive oil at the bottom of the pan, or stew pot, I should say. You can move that out the way. Now, if you notice, I didn't put any salt at all in the meatballs, or the pork portion of the pork and beans. So I'm going to put 1/2 teaspoon of salt in with the onions to help them turn translucent. When they turn translucent, I'll add the other ingredients. So we'll save time on the video here, and we'll let that do its thing. Oh, my little scab's horrible in this light. While we're waiting on the onions to get translucent here, I thought I'd give you a little tip of the day. You do realize that this is a mix and match kind of recipe. You could take the meat, it's got impossible meat in it, it's got real meat in it. You could take the meatballs and you could cook them without the bean portion. You could take the meatballs and you could cook those, bake those in the oven, and you could do some little marinara sauce on top of the stove, boil some pasta, and you have spaghetti and meatballs. Or you could take the beans as itself right here and omit the meat portion because you got enough protein with the beans in it. For a vegetarian, this could be a meal in and of itself. Be creative when you're in the kitchen. I enjoy sharing recipes and cooking along with you, especially on a day like today when I'm missing my daddy. I feel like I'm not alone. So thank you for watching. I hope you stick with me to the end of the dish. Okay, I need a bit of lava. That's a big pot of onions. Need a little bit longer on those. We'll pick back up in a minute. I thought I'd let you check in on the meatballs here. That's a 10-minute mark. I'm going to let them go for another 4 minutes. Okay, can you see? My onions are starting to go clear, so we can add our other ingredients. I've got 1 carton of fat-free beef broth. I'm still on high heat at this point. I'm going to turn it down once I get everything in the pot. I've got 3 cans of coconut milk. Not all coconut milk is the same. Even though it's the same on the outside, some of them have the little best part. Just float it to the top. Whew. There we go. It separates. Dry spoon here. That's my liquids. Put that out the way. Stir that in. Smells good already. Yeah. Oh, watch my spoon banger recipe video, I should say. That's a funny one. Okay, now garlic powder. 2 tablespoons. 1, 2. Granulated beef bouillon, 1 tablespoon. 1 tablespoon garlic powder. Did I say garlic or did I say onion? That was onion. Cut me some slack today, folks. Okay, 1 tablespoon garlic powder. 1 tablespoon basil. 2 tablespoons Italian seasoning. 1, 2. Okay, stir that good, then we'll add the beans. Pretty. Okay, I got 4 cans of cannellini beans. It didn't matter whether they are organic or not. It's just what was on sale at the market this morning. But you're always messing with my parakeets in there. I gotta see what's going on with them. to check on my chihuahua. No harm, no foul. They just playing with each other. One was over the side of the cage and the other one saw him. Okay, pinto beans. Whoop. That's my other 4 minutes. Let's hold on there. Let's check on the meatballs. Where's my oven mitt? Back up, Bogart. Oh yeah, they look good. Can't cut the oven off because I got a second pan to go in, but let me pick them out and show them to you. Whew. Don't burn your hands, Miss Martha. Oh, they're pretty. Can you see how pretty they look? Okay. These over here on a wire rack. The next one's in. 14 minutes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Start. Back to the beans. What was we saying? We're putting in our pinto beans now. 1, 2, 3 cans of pinto beans. Stir those in. I got 1 can of navy beans. Remember, I'm remaking my daddy's favorite dish, which was navy beans. Pork and beans, though. Ham hock in the navy beans. You know, I don't cook with ham hocks anymore. That's not healthy. Okay, I've got 2 small cans of diced chilies that have been drained, like everything else. All the other canned goods were drained to control your sodium content. I'm going to wait until the other pan of the meatballs come out the oven, and then I'll add the last little seasoning ingredients over here, which I've got my light sour cream and 2 packs of sausage gravy. So we'll give a little rest here while I'm waiting on the last meatballs to cook. Okay, all of the meatballs, portion of the pork and beans are out of the oven. I'm going to turn our bean portion down to simmer. And now we're just letting it kind of thicken up at this point. Everything's basically done. I'm just going to assemble it and it'll sit here and simmer till my husband comes in. He's ready to eat it. Right now, the last ingredients are going in. I have 2 packs of sausage flavored country gravy. Stir that in. That'll help thicken it. Yeah. Can you see? How much can you see? I'll move the camera so you can see. Move that out the way. And I've got 1 carton of sour cream. Light sour cream. Let's get that in the pot. Try not to splash all over myself. Okay, that's in. Once all that's incorporated, the last thing to do is to add the meatballs. And I've got a new take on pork and beans. Let's see, I'm gonna get these in here. The spoon. Some of the gravy mix is stuck to the spoon there. Okay, let's see if we can do this without making a big mess. Easy, easy peasy. Ooh, splashed me. There went the splash. I knew it was going to get splashed. Let me pull it over so you can see. I never know how to work this thing. Whoops. Don't drop the camera in the soup. Amateur. I think I can take it loose and turn it to a face front camera. Do that before I mess it up. I can ladle some in a bowl. It's not quite ready to eat, but I'll let you see how lovely it looks. I need the flavors to sink into my meatballs. See, I'm left-handed, but I want y'all to see. There we go. How pretty that looks. We can go ahead and get a seasoning cat, even though we're going to let it cook a little bit longer to thicken up more. There's a better way for you to see it than when I was dropping the camera all over the place, isn't it? Here, look how pretty that looks. Let's see if I cut the meatball in half. So you can see him all the way through. He's pretty. Inside of the meatballs, different taste. That's good. Oh yeah. Beans. Delicious. Okay. Thank you for cooking with me today. Pork and beans. It's basically done. It tastes delicious. I can go ahead and eat that bowl for my lunch. But I am going to leave it. I got it way, way down on simmer. So it's 3 o'clock. My husband's working over Cape Charles. He might get home early around 4 o'clock today. So be ready when he walks in the door. He loves to come and go, what smells so good? And I tell him, I remind him. My son remembered what December the 19th was. My husband didn't acknowledge it. He just got so much on his mind, he can't worry about trivial stuff like that for him. But to me, it's a major day. So thank you for sharing the day with me. You helped it go by fast, and I didn't have to miss my daddy so much. I have happy memories of it by making pork and beans for him in honor of him. God bless. Do something special for your family over the holidays. Doesn't have to be expensive gifts. Homemade, home-cooked food goes a long way to making people happy at the holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever else. Happy holidays.